Hello and welcome to Vergecast, the flagship podcast of knowing that you should just always take the over on Tesla ship dates. I'm not a betting person. That's not a thing that I do. I spend my money in Vegas on limousines. Famous personality trait of mine. But if FanDuel ever offers bet on Tesla ship dates, I might get into it. I'm just putting it out there.
Listen, if I've learned one thing about the internet, it's that you can bet on anything. Somewhere on Polymarket, you can bet on Elon Musk and the CyberCab. I'm confident.
Do you think he's just taking the other side of that bet? That's his plan to fund Twitter?
He just gets it coming and going, man.
Hi, I'm your friend Eli. That's David Pierce. Hey, David.
Hello.
We've got a good episode. We're going to go over our bets from last week on the Robotaxi announcement. Apple announced new iPad minis. There's some weird Intel news to talk about. There's a really cute Nintendo 64 emulator that I want to get into.
Yeah.
But also, Amazon's Panos Panay is on the show this week. There was a Kindle event. David went to it. Panos came to the studio. We hung out with him for a while. We tried to get him to say what's going on with Alexa. He declined. And then we got a lightning round. It's going to be amazing. It's the Vergecast. It's a good one. Let's start, David, with our bets. So we ran this gimmick last week where we were recording the show before Tesla's Robotaxi event. And you and I made a bunch of predictions. Mm-hmm. And now we can see if we were correct.
You know what's weird is going back through, and we'll go through it, but I have two regrets that I would like to share before we get into it. One of my regrets is that I didn't push harder on I think this is a thing you're going to be able to buy. We talked about it briefly, and I asked, wait, do you think that this Robotaxi they're about to launch is going to be a thing you can buy? And you were just like, absolutely not. That would be insane. Whoops, here we are. That was not one of your predictions. Carefully not one of your predictions.
Yeah.
But it should have been one of mine that it was going to be something you can buy. And
I actually still stand by my prediction. I want to be clear.
I mean, fair. The problem is we're going to have to redo who won these predictions every 3 months for the next 10 years until these things actually launch, and then we'll see who wins. So let me just quickly run through the news, and then we can run through our predictions. And the news, I would say, was basically two things, right? There was the CyberCab and the Robovan. There was a bunch of other.
I'm sorry, David. It's pronounced Robovan. You think I'm joking? Listen to Elon pronounce it. He says Robovan.
It's the Robovan?
Yes, and I'm pretty sure that is yet another horrible Westworld reference.
That
because
sounds
at the event, you could take the Robotaxi to different spots on the map at Warner Brothers on the lot. And one of them was New York City, and one of them was Westworld. And if you stuck it out long enough through Westworld, one of the villains is whatever, it doesn't matter. He said Robovan.
Robovan is just the last name of a Midwestern door-to-door salesman who is just Thomas Robovan. How you doing?
Or it's the all-seeing AI in Westworld.
Yeah, or it's that. Well, no, it is not Robovan. I will not acknowledge that. It is the Robovan. It's fine. It's when Apple was no, it's not the iPhone X, it's the iPhone 10. They were wrong. It's the iPhone X, and it is the Robovan.
Wow. Bold.
So there was the Robovan. The Robovan named Robovan. Robovan.
Robovan, that's great. I'll take that.
In Europe, it's the Robovan.
I just want to underline this. All of these things are fake.
Yes. They
the van, perhaps
nothing.
Most of all, is not a thing that will occur.
Yeah. And one of the things that you said was there might be a whiff of the supposedly autonomous truck that's actually just rolling downhill. I would not say I'm absolved of all of the maybe this is not real vibes from this event. But anyway, so those were basically the two things, right? There was the CyberCab was the thing. It has bat wings. It's a 2-seater car. Looks neat. It's fine. It is supposedly going to be available in 2027. It's supposedly going to cost less than $30,000. It's just a bunch of words that he said out loud and a prototype.
Yeah.
It's not nothing. I want to be clear. I'm not being dismissive. It's not nothing, but it's not something either.
So I just want to acknowledge this from the start. Our conversation about this is happening in the context of SpaceX catching the Starship booster,
which
on
was
the launch
sick
tower,
as hell,
which is awesome.
Yeah.
It is true that sometimes the things happen.
Yeah.
That is a true thing you can say about Elon Musk companies, but mostly about one of them. The one that he doesn't run. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk companies usually accomplish their goals is a thing you can mostly say about the company that Gwen Shotwell runs. That's it. That's that one.
Yes.
Tesla, on the other hand, has been promising a lot of things for a long time, and most of those things don't arrive. And I think it's possible to split them up. I don't think you can say, well, he landed the rocket or caught the rocket in this case, so he will ship the CyberCab in full self-driving. Those things are like the most deeply unrelated things I can think of.
Totally.
For example, Tesla has furious competition. SpaceX does not. In fact, SpaceX's competition is so shit that there are astronauts in space right now who can't come home.
Yeah. And including like the government has largely just given SpaceX everything. Like that's a whole different thing.
I'm just saying, that's contextually, the people I know and like to read and people I think highly of have conflated these two accomplishments. And I'm just pulling them apart.
100%. And I think it's useful in another way, which is like we always overrate, for better and for worse, the extent to which a CEO is a company, right? Like he doesn't deserve all the blame for the mess of Tesla stuff over the years, and he doesn't deserve all of the credit for what SpaceX is doing. Neither of those things is true. I think he probably deserves more blame than credit, generally speaking. But like, all this is to say, like, I have found it very useful over the years to think of each of his companies as completely separate things run by separate people. Like X and Tesla increasingly are aligned in ways that are strange and odd.
And XAI, it's the ones he runs and Gwen Shotwell. That's it.
I mean, those
fair. Are the companies.
That is fair.
They're the companies that Elon runs, and then there's Gwen Shotwell who runs SpaceX, and she is, by all accounts, trusted and visionary and great.
Yeah.
Okay. But I just want to separate, because the two achievements the one achievement and the one launch happened in the same time frame. So everyone thinks one is evidence of the other, and they're not. And so the CyberCab, which is fine, like people watched this event in real time. They were like, this is fake. There's a guy controlling the car. I don't know if that's true or not. I do know that a prototype car running around the back lot of a movie set is a thing that we've had for a long time.
Yes.
Like you can go to Universal Studios today and drive around in a car that appears to be driving itself.
Yeah, 100%. And like a humanoid seeming robot that's being controlled by somebody else far away. Also a thing we've had for a long time. Also a thing that they try to get people very excited about at this event. This is the thing. I'm so torn between like where on the spectrum of nothing to something this actually is. Because on the one hand, the whole idea of the CyberCab strikes me as completely ridiculous. Like a two-seater car already vastly decreases the number of people who can use it. I saw somebody point out that like, oh, great, you made a cab whose doors can't open in city traffic, which is a really excellent point. Like this thing just doesn't make any real world sense, but neither does the Cybertruck. And like that eventually shipped. So who knows? Oh,
I mean, they also announced inductive charging, which doesn't exist for a car of this size yet. That's cool. I would love to have that. It's just not real. And then they didn't announce any of the mathematics.
Right.
Like, how will this work? I buy one of these things for $30,000. I put it on the Robo-Taxi network or the Roboxy network. That one doesn't work nearly as well. And then Tesla just takes some money while this thing drives around picking up customer. Am I liable if it crashes? Do I have to clean it up if someone pukes in it? Is that Tesla's responsibility? What are the splits? Like if I buy a CyberCab for $30,000 and put it on the Robotaxi network, how long in a moderately busy city until that investment is paid off and I'm making a profit on it? If you don't have that chart, you actually haven't announced anything in the context of this service.
Totally. Yeah,
or at least a projection of that chart.
Well, and that's all the stuff that is the stuff of self-driving, right? Like you said, a car that can drive you around a movie lot without appearing to have a driver. It's actually like, it's a huge technical achievement that we are actually not near in the real world, but that is only one tiny slice of what is going on here. And Andy Hawkins wrote a great thing, just basically like writing the list of things left to solve, both by this whole industry and by Tesla in particular. And I think the belief from Elon Musk and Tesla has been that they can just like brute force their way through it and it'll work, and it just hasn't, and it won't. And so I think, again, even if you've solved the can this thing drive safely by itself on the road problem, which we haven't, no one has, even if you've solved that, you've only solved one tiny slice of the what does it take to actually roll this out in the world problem. And the CyberCab to me is just like one sort of bad idea about what that car might look like.
Yeah.
That's as far as I am like willing to grant it.
So two things about that. The promise for a lot of Model 3 and Model Y buyers over the years has been you'll pay the extra money for full self-driving hardware, and then one day overnight, these things will turn into robo-taxis, and they will start making you money while you sleep. This is an explicit promise that Elon Musk and Tesla have made to these buyers, prospective buyers. This is something that people have bought these cars as an investment, spending money they maybe didn't have, waiting to pay off. It's not here yet. What version of the car will actually get support for this is contested. And when I say contested, I mean, while Elon was speaking, someone was screaming hardware 3 support at him. And his response was, let's not get too nuanced.
Right.
And then later, I think it was Franz von Holhausen, the head of design at Tesla, who was giving an interview, who said hardware 3 would be supported. What's the answer? Like, it's unclear. But if you're buying a CyberCab and you're immediately competing with thousands, if not millions, of existing Model 3s, you're in a weird spot. Like, why would you make that investment? Because then you're buying a less practical car. Also, presumably Tesla's going to run its own.
Right.
So again, I just think the math doesn't add up. And then the basics of like what Tesla has promised people for a long time still isn't there.
Well, and there's this sense at all of those events that Tesla is still the company that has infinite demand, right? That anything they do, people will buy because it's Tesla, because it's exciting, and because it's cool. And to me, the reaction to the event was very telling in the sense that I think Tesla has lost a lot of that shine, partly because there's a lot of competition and partly for like Elon Musk reasons. But also people just don't believe Tesla anymore. Yeah. There was a sense for so long that it was like, okay, don't believe the price, don't believe the ship date, but like this thing is going to happen and it's going to be awesome. And that is just not how people react to this anymore. There is no benefit of the doubt that this is a good idea. I just don't see it yet anymore. And Tesla had that going for it for so long, and it just feels gone. But anyway, the taxi thing is a good segue to our predictions. So let's just do the scoreboard here very quickly. I think unfortunately it's going to look very bad for me very quickly. So let's just run through this very fast and then never speak of it again. Your 3 predictions were won't arrive until 2027.
Ding.
Yeah, nailed that one. Again, we'll see, but he said 2027 many times.
I should have said 2029.
Only in certain cities. What's our ruling on that? That it like, again, this is one we'll see someday, but the pitch was like, you can buy one and just have it and everything will be like, I kind of want to give you a push on that because he didn't say it is that. He didn't say it won't be that.
Yeah, that's a nothing. I feel very confident that will be true. That you can only light this up in one city at a time.
Yeah. No, I suspect you're right about that.
For example, you have to build your vaporware inductive chargers first.
Right.
So you have to invent them, which is an important step 1. You have to make sure they work at scale, a very important step 2. And then you have to put them in cities. Yeah,
wait, can you explain that one to me actually? Because didn't Tesla like do this once successfully already, and now everyone is adopting the standard that Tesla did, and we're actually like headed towards a good place where all of this might work successfully? Why blow this up with a new way of charging things?
Oh, I thought you meant did they invent an inductive charging standard? I was like, that would be amazing.
No, I mean like they
meant
did the charging
NACS
standards.
charger.
Yeah, like we have the NACS chargers.
That.
Like that is the thing that is going to enable these charging systems to work around the world in a standard way. And then Tesla is just like, never mind, we're going to try this other thing that definitely won't work. Like, why?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense in the way that catching the rocket makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's an absurd idea. Like, if I can pull this off, it will be sick.
Okay.
Right. So you've got taxis. You don't want too many moving parts around the taxis. So to charge them, you don't want to roll up to a bay where a robot arm opens a door and sticks the charger into it. You just want it to roll up and start charging.
Sure.
So if you make it work that there's inductive charging, which has been demoed by a handful of companies and a handful of controlled settings Tesla, I think at one point demoed like motorized battery changing from the underside of the car. Like there's lots of ideas on how to make like battery charging faster.
Sure.
Or simpler or smoother, or require less moving parts. The problem is that Elon was also showing off mocks of like, what if we got rid of all the parking lots around the stadiums and they were just parks?
Right.
And it's like, well, all the robo-taxis are going to drop off the 100,000 people at the stadium. Where are they going to go to charge on these? So you just want fields of inductive charging pads? That seems like weird. That's a weird thing to want to put somewhere.
Every time somebody shows one of those, I just think of the traffic data from New York where Uber and Lyft were like, we'll get everybody off the roads. And actually what it is now is there are just like 50% more cars because it's just Uber and Lyft driving around waiting for somebody to get in the car. Like we actually made it worse. and yeah, if we have a bunch of robo-taxis, they got to go somewhere.
I once tried to explain the concept of induced demand to my family, that's the concept that if you make the highway wider, more people will take the highway.
You're so fun at parties, I bet.
Well, because they were like, we should make the highway bigger. And I was like, well, there's a thing called induced demand. And like, boy, did that not make sense to anyone. And I feel like this trade-off of we'll put a park near Soldier Field instead of a parking lot. And then we're going to need to build a field of like inductive charging pads for all the CyberCabs to go to charge while I'm just saying one city at a time.
Yeah.
That's your problem.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. So we'll give you a push on that, but again, we're going to have to rescore this so many times. And then your third one was existing Teslas will not be able to turn into robo-taxis. And I think you're taking a loss on that one.
I think this one's also a push because we don't know about hardware 3. We don't know if it's only the very newest ones or if the hardware 3, which has they all have like low resolution cameras, but we don't know which ones. So this is also just up in the air.
I'm going to give you like a light loss on that one. It's like I'm taking
just like
some of your money, but not all.
face.
Yeah, like I'm not taking all your money, but I'm not happy with you.
Yeah, you just want me to be a little bit embarrassed. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me do yours. Yours are worse.
Please hit me. Mine are worse.
You predicted that the cars would be driven by Optimus robots.
It's a push. We don't know. There's 2 seats in the car.
What you should have predicted is the Optimus robots would be driven by people.
Well, so this is where my second one really hits, which is they were going to do a demo that didn't work. And
well, the demo worked in that the people controlling the Optimus robots fooled some other people.
That's fair.
And like a lot of people are like, Optimus is the future. And once again, I will point out that Honda had those robots like a decade ago that could like jump and flip.
Yeah.
Boston Robotics. I mean, they will sell you a lethally armed robot dog today. And they are desperate for customers. They've been trying to sell themselves for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in the market for a robot dog with a gun on its tail, make the call. You know, you never know what's the lease deals are out of control. And then, Chuck E. Cheese exists.
Yeah. I mean, truly, one of the funniest things about this whole event to me was all the people like taking the videos and stuff of the robots being like, whoa, this is so cool. And my reaction to all of these videos, which are very impressive, like these robots are holding conversations, they're doing really complicated gestures and motions, like all kinds of really impressive stuff. One's like, I think running around doing card tricks or something. If the robots were that good, there would be no other story. That would have been the event. They would have been like, oh my God, we fixed robots. Like we did it.
Wait, I need to correct myself. Boston Dynamics was purchased. They did complete the purchase in 2021. Hyundai Motor Group bought Boston Dynamics. So that means Hyundai and Kia have a more advanced Optimus than Tesla.
That also makes me, there's a Hyundai dealership literally down the street from me that I would say 4 years ago was like kind of dingy and gross, and they have now expanded to it's 2 full blocks long in our town. And I now assume one of those is for robot dogs with guns. And I fear for my life in this neighborhood now.
The headline in IEEE Spectrum, which is a great magazine, Hyundai buys Boston Dynamics for nearly $1 billion. Now what? Which is very good.
Sounds about right. But yeah, the robots was just like, if it had been even remotely close to as good as those robots appeared and they were actually automated and AI, that would have been the most incredible tech demo in ever. Mm-hmm. So it's like, no, of course there are people on the other side of this. Like, I think where it netted out was they were walking automatically, and everything else was human assisted.
Which again, Honda pulled off a decade ago.
Right.
And also, you can just roll up to a Boston Dynamics robot and kick it, and it's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I won't fall down. And no one was touching the.
Yeah.
I get it. You want Optimus to exist. You want to prove that it's great. And the videos I saw, I think Marquez posted one. I saw a few others where they were just talking to the Optimus robots, and they were just talking back. They're like, "Are you an AI?" And he's like, "Yo, dude, I don't know." It's like that's a guy. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever talked to ChatGPT. that's just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then your last prediction. So that's 2 L's.
Yeah,
Optimus drivers and a demo that won't work.
I'll take it. I should have gone with it's a thing you can buy. I really should. I was sitting there being like, this is a thing you can buy. But then I was like, that doesn't make any sense that it would be. And I should have stuck to my guns.
All right. And then existing Teslas are taxis. We took the opposite side of this bet, and I think it's a light L for both of us.
No, it's a light dub for me. It's a light L for you. Let's be honest here.
So it's some existing Teslas, but maybe not most of them.
It's like, we're like going into halftime and the score is tied, but like I'm playing much better than you. You know what I mean? Like that's where we are. I have all the momentum, but the score is tied. That's what's going on right now.
You're an Optimus robot just shuffling your way towards the bar.
Exactly.
Fair. I'll give it to you just because, I want you to hit the heights so that Crash is that much sweeter for you. Playing the long game.
That's
here.
kind of you.
So that's the Robo Taxi event. Oh, by the way, I just need to say this about the Robovan one more time.
Sorry, what? The what?
The Robovan. He showed a picture of it. They showed some mocks of the interior. Of all of the things, this is the one that will not arrive.
I totally agree.
The way that it looks and operates and works, it's just not going to happen that way.
I mean, we've seen basically this idea in roughly this design a billion times over the years. Like in so many ways, nothing about this concept is new at all.
That's where my confidence comes from.
Yeah.
when Tesla or another Elon company does the bonkers thing that no one else has tried because it's too hard. All right. Let's catch the rocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, well, there it is again.
Yeah.
It's
in every city of the future thing, this is what buses look like.
Yep.
Every single one of them for 50 years, this is what they look like. And it just...
Oh, I figured it out. You know what the difference between SpaceX and Tesla is?
What's that?
The fucking Cybertruck wiper. Like... You have a grand plan to reinvent spaceflight. Gwen Shotwell will get it done. Mm-hmm. You're like, wipers. Start at the drawing board. Just no idea what to do.
Yeah, are there wipers on the rockets? I feel like they probably work.
Yeah, the gimbals on the thrusters, a lot of things on the rockets work. That's all doing it. And then over here, we're like, what if one big wiper? Let's do it. And it's like, that thing does not work at all.
It's so floppy.
But it's a bad wiper. I'm saying taking the solved problem and trying to resolve it is very much the Tesla mode right now. And that it's just, like this van is the most solved problem. How do you move 6 people around a city? It's called an Escalade. Just do it. Just make an Escalade. It's going to be fun.
I mean, we make fun of Waymo for just getting a bunch of like Chrysler Pacificas. That's actually like, it does work. It does do the job.
Actually, a very funny thing. I was looking at a chart of percentage of EV sales by car maker, and Jaguar has this like shockingly high percentage of EV sales.
Because of Waymo?
Because of Waymo.
That's so funny.
Because Waymo buys so many EV Jaguars. So like they're taking platforms that work and making them autonomous. And it's like they're just moving along. There are Waymos testing on the streets of New York right now, and they're just adding cities and moving along and making their progress. And then there's whatever this is in 2027.
Right. And Tesla's whole thing is like launch the giant thing and then work backwards from it. And that worked enough times that it gave them a lot of confidence. And I think there's very little evidence it's going to work this time or has worked the last couple. But we should move on. We have other stuff to talk about.
By the way, I think we were both 1 for 3.
Yeah.
No, well, yeah, it's a push for me. I'm
yeah, you won. Congratulations.
I think we'll it's a provisional.
I'll buy you a CyberCab.
There's an asterisk by this win. I'll take the $30,000.
No, I'll buy you a CyberCab.
Damn it.
I'll buy you a Robovan when it comes out.
All right. There's other news. Actually, quite a lot of other news.
Yeah.
We should start it. There's been a lot of rumors about Apple doing an October event. We're obviously running out of October. A lot of rumors about M4 Max. Who knows what's going to happen? We're waiting on Apple Intelligence to hit. That feels very likely will happen this month. But again, we're running out of October.
Yeah.
And I think they just needed to announce the new iPad mini with a new chip in it. And then they just did it. They just put out a press release, and now there's a new iPad mini.
Yeah, at some point, I have just given up waiting for Apple to like really care about the iPad mini. And it's not that it's not a good device. I think it's a very good device, and I think the new one is probably also very good, but it is so clearly not interesting to Apple for whatever reason, right? Like there's a subset of people who really like it. The new one even is clearly not impressive. Like it's fine. It's going to be a very good iPad mini, but it has last year's chip.
There's a pilot somewhere that just banked the plane super hard angrily while they're listening to this.
Listen, I got a lot of posts. I wrote the story and I put every pilot's favorite tablet in the deck of our story. Like you can't own me harder than I own myself, people. But it's just a spec upgrade, right? Which is fine.
Yeah.
The last one of these was 3 years ago and total redesign. They did a bunch of cool stuff. They squared off the edges. It got Touch ID in the power button, like all good stuff. It's a really good device. This one is just purely a spec upgrade. Faster everything, faster connections, faster processors. But to me, the thing that's the most telling is in a year where Apple upgraded the iPad Air to the M2 and the iPad Pro to the M4, and actually launched the M4 with an iPad. Like that is Apple does not do that stuff by accident. That is like a statement of this is what this device means in our lineup. This thing got the A17 Pro, which was in iPhones last year.
Do you think they just were like, well, we got all these iPhone 15 Pro parts?
Jason Snell wrote a really good thing at 6 Colors, basically positing that, that it's like, this is a good chip. It's the least you need to work on Apple Intelligence. So Apple is just trying to pull people along with not quite like garbage bin parts, but like stuff it already had, right? This is the upgrade you can do without trying very hard. And it'll work. Like I'm sure this mini will be very good. No one I know had performance issues with the last mini. This one will do fine. It's all going to be fine. But every single time one of these comes out, I hold out hope that Apple is going to do something new for it. Like give me a keyboard case. Come up with a new idea about how people are going to use this thing. We got Pencil Pro support, which is nice. But the story of this is just, it is slightly worse and smaller.
Slightly worse.
Yeah, it's not the M2. It's not the M4.
Oh, I see.
Like
Not
this
the
thing,
before.
this thing will feel old much sooner than the other iPads that came out this year.
I thought you meant slightly worse in comparison to the old one. Like it's an iPad mini, but this one will hurt you in some way.
Oh no,
like the glass is jagged.
This one, it's an iPad mini, but it pokes you once every 8 minutes, and you never know when.
No, you mean in comparison to the rest of the iPad.
In comparison to the rest of the iPads,
Got
right?
it,
And
okay.
like the story, what you would want really is basically to have this one be just as good and slightly smaller, right? Like this is what people want from the iPhone mini. Like give me one that is just as good but slightly smaller. And Apple is resolutely not doing that with any of its products.
I wonder. I wonder if there's thermal issues with sticking an M series chip in a platform this small. Who knows? The thing that gets me, I believe it was Christopher Mims, your old colleague from the Journal, who I think his post was just make it a phone. Like if you just called this the iPhone Ultra Plus Max, people would buy it because people love big phones.
Yes.
And it's so funny because even if you wanted to use an iPad mini as your phone, you could not because it doesn't run iPhone apps.
Right. Well, there is
the iPad OS is like in this weird tweener zone.
There is a real like, what if I had an iPad and an Apple Watch and that was my computing setup that I think could, in theory, be very compelling in the way that you're describing. But Apple just won't do that. You're right. If this was a giant iPhone, I think it would actually be more interesting as a device than as a tiny iPad.
Yeah, but it's like, you know what it doesn't run? Instagram.
Right.
Indefensibly so. It just doesn't run Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's it's not so much bigger than my iPhone 16 Max. Like,
yeah. Well, which is, I think, the strange thing. It's at this point, especially as the phones have just continued to get bigger. I mean, the 16 Pro Max is 6.9 inches right now. The iPad mini is 8.3 inches, which is a difference, but it's not that huge a difference. Like, the only main user interface thing is A, you can't run iPhone apps, and B, you don't get the pencil support on the iPhone, right? So that's
saying
the trade.
The picture, Apple's own press picture of the Mini, is a hand holding it like a phone, like this.
Yeah.
And like the only difference is the fingers are out. Like that's a huge hand. I have a big hand, and like that is a big hand. We're gonna get there. It's gonna happen one day, and then the ghost of Steve Jobs is gonna be very upset with everyone. I was looking at my old iPhone 5, which was like the biggest he would let it get.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, your thumb has to hit the opposite. iPad mini is a phone.
Those were the
days.
That's
the future. All right. Can you explain this next one to me? Because I don't understand what's going on.
I was really hoping you
AMD, Intel, and a bunch of tech companies formed an alliance. Mm-hmm. It's called the x86 Advisory Group. Microsoft, Google, Meta, Lenovo, and then truly Intel and AMD, which are ferocious rivals. Yeah. They formed the x86 Ecosystem Advisory Group. Pat Gelsinger announced it on stage at Lenovo's Tech World 2024 conference, the hottest conference of the year. And Gelsinger said, x86 said, we are alive and well.
Yeah, my We're Alive and Well t-shirt is answering a lot of questions raised by my We're Alive and Well. The only thing I can read into this is just pure existential fear from these companies, right? Like of ARM. Yeah. And I think frankly, with good reason, Apple has completed its transition to its own ARM based silicon stuff and is just lapping everybody else in like raw sort of everyday device performance. It is just crushing the competition. Qualcomm, I think for like a decade made promises that it couldn't keep about its ARM performance and how it was going to bring like all the efficiency of mobile and all the power of desktops and put that together and it was going to be magic. And I think Intel and AMD and others watched Qualcomm sort of try and fail to do that and were like, okay, well, they'll never get there. It's not going to happen. And I think you could argue with relative success that Qualcomm is there now. And I think it's very clear that Qualcomm is going to get there, right? Whether or not you believe it's a real x86 competitor now with the Snapdragon Elite and all that stuff in the new Copilot Plus PCs and all that stuff, it's either there or it's close. And I think that leap was so big that all of these other companies just panicked. I mean, and Intel is obviously like sort of collapsing in on itself like a dying star in so many ways right now. And AMD is, I think, in a slightly less precarious position. Yeah, but it also would very much like to not have Qualcomm become a dominant player. And the whole chip industry has just turned, right? Like you have what Apple's doing, you have what NVIDIA is doing, and you have what Qualcomm is doing. And all these other chip makers are just out there being like, oh my God, this happened so much faster than we expected.
Yeah.
I don't know how to read it other than that.
On the AI side of things, I read this as a data center announcement of all of the things.
Interesting.
Even though it's a Lenovo conference, x86 is still doing well in data centers.
Sure.
And then, NVIDIA, I think, gets a lot of the shine for AI because it's selling so many of its GPUs to AI companies. But x86 processors outperform the N series in a bunch of AI tasks. Yeah. AMD has a pretty healthy business selling GPUs. There's just a whole thing there, right? Where if that is the big market, you might as well put together the big competitor to NVIDIA and say here's your other path, because all the big companies would like not to be locked into NVIDIA. I don't know about consumer PCs at all. I truly don't. I guess they were on stage at the Lenovo event, but they weren't waving laptops around.
That's true.
And so it's weird. And it's weird that Microsoft is Copilot Plus PCs, mostly ARM chips. And then also over here on this other platform that we are tied to forever.
Right. Well, and I think with a lot of that stuff, there is the ARM advancement has just happened so fast. while I think x86, particularly with Intel, has just been like stuck in the mud for a long time, that Intel has kind of gone version after version of its chips without sort of meaningful progress on some of the stuff that people really care about. And I think in theory, the idea of banding together on this is like, okay, we can sort of rising tide lifts all boats here by meshing together some of the work these companies are doing and saying, okay, we're all going to build better chips, which is actually going to benefit all of us, instead of just, sort of running in parallel and all trying to reinvent the wheel on our own, which I think is a good strategy. I just think they are way too late in starting this move.
Let me just read you the list here to support my data center claim. Broadcom, Dell, Google, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, as well as HP Inc., the other one, Lenovo, Meta, Microsoft, Oracle, and Red Hat. And then, just for fun, Linus Torvalds and Tim Sweeney. Just some guys. Guys. Those are all people that run giant servers.
I mean, the picture at the top of the press release is a data center. Like, it's not unclear what they're doing here. But no, I think you're right, and I think that's all fine, right? Like, many of these companies have big businesses. Like, did you mention Google is in this? And it's because of Google Cloud, right? Like, we run data centers. We kind of need this to work because otherwise we're hosed, paying NVIDIA every penny we have.
But it's funny because all those companies are also building their own chips on the side.
Yeah.
Right? Microsoft is building its own chips. They have a lot to say. If you're Microsoft and you want ARM on Windows to work, you get to walk into Qualcomm's office and be like, do what we want. You're it. Yeah. Right? Or we're going back to Intel, which someone has to tell them what to do. So you just see
Google's building TPUs. Like, everybody is on this.
Well, we'll see. I just think something is happening in the world of x86 chips, and this is one of those things. That's what I got for you right now. And I will say that if you're ever in a position to give a keynote and you're like, make the slide say we are alive and well, just take a beat. Just really think about what that means to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, like it's them trying to convince the world. Allison Johnson, who wrote the story, made the point that this whole thing might have just been to convince investors that, like, yes, we are taking ARM seriously. Might have been true. Really would have been a super good idea to do this in like 2017.
What if you face down the ferocious competitive monster of NVIDIA with a committee that works as well as the USB and implementers forum?
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Give leather jackets to everyone on the committee. It's game over.
A couple more bits of gadget news. Sonos announced a new Arc Ultra soundbar and Sub 4. Two pieces here, I would say. One, I think they've decided the app is good enough again. Like, they had paused new releases because the app was so broken, but we've talked about this. They've like released their plan to fix it. They've mostly fixed it. They're doing the public Trello board with the feature updates to come, which is incredible. Eddie Lazarus in their C-suite he has given his media tour about what he found in his report, which was, we shouldn't have released a shitty app. Shocking revelation. Mm-hmm. But I think they think they're fine. They've gotten to where they need to be, and it's time to start releasing products again. So it's a $1,000 Arc Ultra. It's more powerful than the regular Arc, and it's got new transducers from a company called Mate, M-A-Y-H-T.
I think it's Mate, yeah.
Sonos bought this company in 2022. They're like specialized speakers, basically. They call it Sound Motion. And the quote is, one of the most significant breakthroughs in audio engineering in nearly 100 years that unlocks greater clarity, depth, and balance than ever before possible in a soundbar this sleek. 7 tweeters, 6 mid-woofers, a built-in woofer, and you get 914 from the one soundbar.
What do we know about Sound Motion? Like, I do feel like Sonos is not typically prone to grandiose lies about its own sound quality. So I'm more inclined than a lot of companies to believe them when they say this is a big deal. But I also, it just seems like a lot of words.
It's definitely a lot of audio processing.
Okay. But
so
like
I tested the original Arc a long time ago, and I tested it against my own 514 with actual speakers in the ceiling, and I thought the Arc did a great job actually, but it was obviously more processed.
Yeah.
Like that was the trade-off. Like very clearly the trade-off was, boy, there's not as much stuff happening around me when I use my actual system versus the Arc. And the Arc is like, boy, there's a lot of stuff happening around you. And boy, it just sounds like more audio processing is occurring to make it seem like a bunch of stuff is happening all around you. I've never been happy with how these things sound for music. I just think music and movies are two different things.
Yeah.
So I haven't heard this yet. I'm excited to hear it. I know Chris Welch is excited to review it. But the notable thing is we're getting to the place where 914 out of a soundbar is possible for $1,000, which is, if all that works, that is incredible. That is a system that would, even if you buy cheap speakers, a receiver that can support 914, like you're out for thousands of dollars, and then you got to put them on the ceiling. So to do it in a soundbar for $1,000 is pretty cool.
Well, and I think that's been Sonos's thing with soundbars for a minute now. Even what you're describing about the Ace, right? It's like it's almost as good or like very good, if not as good, with essentially none of the effort, right? Like it's, and that's, I think, the whole pitch of soundbars in general. I have become a big believer in soundbars as somebody who is like just not going to put 9 speakers in my house. It's just not going to happen. I'd love to, but it's not going to happen. But I think the idea that if you can use this processing to get even most of the way there with just a thing I plant in front of my television, that's pretty powerful. Like I think that goes a really long way for an awful lot of people.
I just want to be clear, 914 is not 9 speakers, it is 13.
You're right. I apologize.
That's bonkers. Like I'll
put in 9. I'm not putting in 13.
Right.
Like,
I have a 514 system, which is 9, and that's a lot of speakers. Like, arguably too many. 914 out of a soundbar is legitimately kind of cool if it works. So I'm excited for that. By the way, the quote from CEO Patrick Spence is, "We have reached a level of quality in the app that gives us the confidence to launch our extraordinary new products." They have 90% of the previous app's features with the forthcoming update, and more are on the way.
I think that's all fine. I also think at some point, if you're Sonos, you just have to start shipping stuff. Like you can only sort of sit there and apologize so many times, and eventually you have to ship new things, and it's about to be the holidays. And I think like we just got to the point where they're like, well, it is what it is. Yeah. We're just going to ship the thing, which I think is fine, right? Like I don't know how much longer they're supposed to sit and sort of beat themselves up about the very bad app that they shipped.
Yeah. I'm dying to listen to this thing. I'm dying to review it. I will say if you have a regular sort of 5.1 system, the biggest, most noticeable upgrade is front height.
Oh, interesting.
So you have your 3 speakers in front of you. The most immediate upgrade is not over your head. It's in front of you and up. Because your ears are pointed to the front. Some basic biology. So you put the 2 speakers above your other speakers, and things are coming at you from above there. That's just a huge upgrade. If you can figure out how to get that upgrade today, you should do it. But a sound bar, or even the speakers you put on top of your speakers, are sort of necessarily reflecting from the middle because they can't make the sound come from straight up. So that's always the thing I'm curious about. We'll see. Revolutionary new transducers, David.
Listen, I still listen to the audio out of my crappy TCL Roku TV.
I'm coming to your house.
I am looking forward to the day that one of these feels worth buying.
I have my old 5.1 system from college, sitting in storage. I'm just going to drive to your house. It's not great.
Listen, every time I leave for work, I come home and Anna has rearranged one room in our house. I think next time she leaves, you should come over and we'll just set up speakers everywhere. It'll be awesome.
All right, last one. It's this 4K N64 from Analogue.
I'm so excited about this thing. So this thing has been a year in the making, maybe? I think we've been getting teases about this for an incredibly long time. It's called the Analogue 3D. It just looks like a Nintendo 64. Actually, the thing kind of looks like a Sega Genesis, but it'll play 64 cartridges. It has a controller. As somebody who grew up with the N64, the way I would date my childhood is the Nintendo 64. I'm so excited about this thing. And Analogue does a really great job of emulating stuff and letting you play old cartridges with these things. I have every confidence that this thing is actually going to work really well. The N64 is notoriously hard to emulate, and Analogue seems to feel very good about having pulled it off, which I'm excited about.
They changed the controller to not have the weird third thing in the middle, which I think
Which is a bummer, to be honest. Like, I love the stupid controller. It never made any sense because you only ever held the middle one and the right one.
Yeah.
Because you don't have 3 hands. But it does still have the ports on the front for plugging in an N64 controller, which I love. I don't know if it actually even works, but just as the way it looks, I'm into it.
Let me ask you a really dumb question. This only takes cartridges, or you can play off cards, like SD cards? I think it only takes cartridges.
So no, it has 2 USB ports and an SD card slot. So you'll in theory be able to put other stuff onto it. But the thing is, and I wonder how true this is. I think there are probably a lot of people out there who still have a box full of N64 cartridges.
I mean, I intend to only play on my legally acquired N64 cartridges.
Same.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm gonna dump them as I always do and always have, which is how I play GoldenEye now. It's totally fine.
I bought one of those Amber Nick Game Boys. And
the one that just ships with like 6,000 games on it from Amazon. Yeah, great.
And we had friends over, and someone was like, "What's this?" And the other, just without missing a beat, they're like, "It's a Game Boy." And I was like, "Well, that's a PhD thesis in trademark infringement." All right, we got to take a break. We're already over. We got to take a break. We'll be back with Panos Panay. All right, we're back. So Amazon introduced new Kindles this week. David, you were at the event.
I was.
Which very notably was the first event at Amazon for Panos Panay, who Vergecast listeners almost certainly remember from his time at Microsoft when he ran Windows and Surface. How was that event?
Really interesting. So I think they did it in a very unusual way. It was an embargoed event. So the whole existence of the thing was not public. It was basically just like a media briefing, but they framed it in his event, and Panos got up on stage and gave a whole speech. Very clearly what's going on is whenever they do a big public thing, it is going to have to be the future of Alexa. But they wanted to give the Kindle its moment, right? And they launched 4 Kindles at once, which I think has never happened in the history of the Kindle, that it was it's a full line reset. And it was fun. This team loves Kindles. I always forget how many people love Kindles. The traffic to our website on the day it launched suggests that a lot of people really care about Kindles. And the team has been making stuff. Panos has been there for almost exactly a year and has done a lot of stuff with the Kindle team since he's been there. So it was cool to actually just get to live in Kindle universe for a minute. Normally they just update the website and it's here's some new Kindles. And this was much bigger than that. So
what are the new ones?
So there's 4. I'll go from cheapest to most expensive. So the cheapest is just the regular Kindle, which has some, spec improvements. It's a little brighter. It comes in a really cool new matcha color that I like a lot. But it's still just the base Kindle. The new Paperwhite has a bigger screen, brighter screen, faster processing. They redesigned it a little bit. It has some really nice, vibrant colors. One thing I heard a bunch from folks at Amazon was the whole sort of book talk movement, and the thing where people are bedazzling their Kindles has really changed the way they think about the device. So they're leaning into sort of making it more fun. The Paperwhite is the Kindle, right? In a very real way. It is the biggest, most important Kindle in the lineup. New one seems to be very good. There's the Kindle Scribe, which is the biggest one that you can take notes on. They made lots of changes to that, including some Gen AI stuff where you can write your notes and then have the Scribe either summarize them or just neatly format them and fix your handwriting so you can share them and find them more easily. But that's still the Scribe. And then the big announcement was the Kindle Color Soft, which is the first color Kindle. And basically it's a Paperwhite with a color display. And they've done some really interesting display stack work to make that work. It's very expensive, but it is the one that they were this is sort of the moment for a new Kindle. Looks really great. You look at color and it's what do I need from color in a reading device? But then just looking at it on a table, seeing the book cover, and now it's in color, it's just instantly oh, this is great.
Yeah. I played with the new Paperwhite you had in the office, and it's very fast. That's all.
Super fast. Yeah. It's a good device.
The only other thing I'll say is I asked Becky if she wanted a color Kindle, and she just looked at me and said, "Stop trying to buy me Kindles." This is the problem. You're going to hear it. We're going to talk about it right now with Panos Panay. And once we're done with that, we're going to go to an ad, and we'll be back with the lightning round. Here's Kindles with Panos Panay.
Panos Panay, welcome to the Vergecast.
What's going on, guys?
Have you been on the Vergecast before?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not in your current iteration, new Panos?
Do you feel like a different person?
No. I mean, you guys come right out swinging. Unbelievable. We got to do this for 30 minutes.
Yeah. We're just getting
clock's
started.
ticking.
Man. We got a lot to do. So I feel
Good
like
to see you guys. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
we've got a lot of news to talk about. You launched several thousand new Kindles that we have to talk about.
It is the most Kindle's been launched, I think, in history of Kindle.
Which is kind of fascinating and is part of what we should talk about. But let's just start with you. I think our audience knows you well over the years. You've launched a lot of things. You've been a product guy for a really long time. Why'd you go to Amazon? Tell us the Panos transition.
The audience does know, but you were at Microsoft for the
Right.
longest time. You did all the Surface stuff there. And then it was kind of a surprise, right? You left
Surface, Windows.
Microsoft to go to Amazon. That was a surprise. I think people are very curious. Why the move? I feel like you had a Ring camera and you were maybe had a bug and you're like, I'm going to Amazon.
There were a few details I wanted to get. Is enough of this? Enough! Fix this right now. You know what? I'm just gonna go somewhere new to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was exactly that, but there's a little bit to that. You know, when you think about the array of products between Ring, Blink, Eero, Fire TV, Fire tablets, Alexa, Echo, Kindle, satellites, Zoox, like you just look at that and you go, what could you do? And when this technological pipe, you know, of AI that's coming, which eventually ends up being a red thread between all these things, how they all connect and you can change people's lives. Like, yeah, it's not a bug. It's just awesome. Like awesome. And so, you know, it energized me. Plus, you know, it's like another chapter is a great thing. It's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Is there an underlying AI bet underneath all of that? Like when you came in, because I think you were making this move right kind of at the beginning of the holy crap, AI is going to change everything moment. And we've been talking to people now for, 2 years who are like, everything that you can see or touch or imagine,
It's a platform
AI
shift.
is right. It's a platform shift. Like, is that your
It's a real
bet
one too. Like it's very real. Yeah, it's 100% that. And so when you ask the question, like, why did you go to Amazon? Like, first, it's an amazing company. Second, the values are crazy cool, But third, wow, like that shift is real. And I think what you can do, especially in the consumer space, and what you can do for people in their everyday lives is off the charts. So if you combine it, it gets a pretty easy answer. Not simple, challenging as a human, emotional and on every way, no question.
Let me just ask you this. You said you named all the things. Zoox is the autonomous taxis. Kuiper, robotaxis.
Yeah, think about it that way.
Kuiper is the satellites. What is the connection between Kindle and the satellites?
You don't need to stretch.
Okay.
You don't need to stretch everything and pull them together. That's not the goal.
Okay.
It's just how you impact people's lives is different in those things.
Okay. I was just wondering because
getting broadband to everybody versus, and let's just think about the impact that has on people. Like, and for me, like it's like a dream. You have, helping people read, learn, create. That's one side on a Kindle, and so game changing for life to make sure, you're reading, learning, getting into a book, disappearing into it. And that's one way to think about. Like, it's just positive everywhere. And then satellites are distributing broadband to the world where everybody needs it. Like same, like impact, both are massive, but very different ways. Different ways.
One of the things that could connect a bunch of these products is Alexa. Obviously, you're talking about AI.
Yeah.
The opportunity for Alexa to be a smarter kind of AI product. I think a lot of people can see it.
Yeah.
Is that happening? You working on that?
Yeah. We are working on it. I'm not necessarily here to talk about it. I think I'll be back soon to talk about it. Sorry, another way to say it. I mean, if you'll have me back, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Because so far I'm frustrated with both of you. So we'll see how this goes, like how it ends.
No, that's right. It'll stay like that.
Yeah.
That's what we keep doing here.
We're going to keep this carefully calibrated.
Yeah, it goes fine.
Like, write it. Should I leave?
Yeah, like just start
Not
right away. I'm
leaving.
sorry. Why did you go to Amazon? Like, what? Come on, man.
I mean, you were the face of products people love for a long time. I mean, you just had an event. David, I think you were at the Kindle launch event, and I got an immediate text from David that's like, I missed a Panos Panay presentation. Like,
Did you?
we missed-
I did. I
you
really
send
did.
that
I sent him that text.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little. It was a less of a tech presentation yesterday. Yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah. And that was Microsoft also has a big platform and has a lot of products so you can connect in different kinds of narratives.
Sure,
You were great
for
at that. I was just curious, like the jump from one big company's ecosystem to another big company's ecosystem, trying to pull them together. It seems like the same challenge, but it sounds very much like you think of the opportunities as different.
They're very different. They are very different. And the way I look at it at Amazon, like the amount of consumers you connect around the world, with the technology shift, it seems like a buzzword at this point to say AI. I can't. It's so hard for me to be like, and with AI, what we're going to be able to do with Alexa just to connect people. I'm not talking about it in detail today, but man, this is going to be transformative. And how it connects throughout your life with all the devices that we just talked about, all the brands that are coming together, both in the home and outside of the home. It's so energizing. There's another side to it too, though. Like the leadership principles at Amazon are surreal. They're fully aligned with the way I love running teams, connecting people and what it means to focus on a customer.
All right. Well, before this becomes a full decoder episode that you're going to do at some point, I have lots of questions about leadership principles that you guys will get to some other time. Let's talk about gadgets.
Yeah, I'd love to. We can talk about leadership principles all day. They're awesome. But if you're not going to let
that's
me,
the other show. I think
that's the other show.
Okay.
There's time for
All right.
that. We'll do that. We'll do that somewhere else. But Kindles. So
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by just the scope of this launch. Like you said, it was 4 Kindles at once, which I think Amazon has never ever done. And I feel like that's either like an accident of technological development or like a very much on purpose Kindles were so back kind of moment. Which one of those things is it?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, come on. It's not going to be an accident, as you know. Kindle's one of these products that kind of transcended other products in a sense of it's a brand and it's a thing and it's identified as e-readers and it's all about reading. All this connection to it is so powerful, but it all reflects back on the people making it. I joined Amazon about a year ago. One of the first couple of meetings I had was on Kindle. And I was inspired to see, like, where are we at? And you had a team with a bunch of stuff in the vault, basically. Like, we're close. We're thinking, what do you think? What do you think? And we sat down, we looked at it all. True story, on the ColorSoft. We looked at it and I said, if the color is great, let's not compromise any experience. There are some limitations with e-ink. It's challenging. There's flashing and other small challenges and how bright it'll be. And you always compare it to an OLED and what that means. And you have this team that's just obsessed about the detail, and which of course is near and dear to my heart. And so about a year ago, we looked at the full lineup and we made the investment that said, let's get after these products. Let's launch them all. Reading has momentum. Literally. I mean, the Kindle brand product line is growing. And there's a whole new generation of readers.
I think, what was the stat that 60% of people who bought a Kindle last year were first-time Kindle buyers?
First-time
I find
Kindle buyers.
That was so surprising to me.
So awesome, because you also have this up and to the right reading trend. And so when you put those two things together, it basically says people who have always read are still reading, and there's a whole new cohort coming in reading. And it's happening right now. I love it because you have Gen Z and millennials who are diving into the power of like disappearing into a book. And if you go on, TikTok, you'll find book talk, and there's a lot of energy. People are bedazzling their Kindles right now. That's always a signal or a sign that's cool. But a year ago when we sat in a room, these are becoming very personal, passionate. That's what I should close at. But a year ago when we sat in that room, it was let me answer the question, super conscious. Like, next year, Kindle will be the year of Kindle. Let's go. We'll bring color. We'll bring it where it belongs. We'll bring a new level of ink to writing. And then we'll refresh the products that, are just what you would call products that people already love.
I'm super fascinated by that moment because I feel like the Kindle's a really unusual kind of device in that it just won so long ago that there has been, I think you can perceive Kindle as both like a giant success and as kind of a slow moving product line over time. There was a sense of like, we did the thing, right? Like 10 years ago. Just here's the Paperwhite. It's great. You're never going to buy another one again because you're not going to have to. And in a certain way, it was like victory for the Kindle, right? And so I think there were people who were like, that's a great thing. But on the other hand, also, there's other stuff happening. There are other companies out there doing interesting things with e-ink and building new kinds of things. We have people who like import weird e-ink devices from China just to like try what it looks like to run Android on them. Like there's a whole.
David's talking about himself.
I am talking about myself. My Books Palma is just outside of this room, and I have a lot of questions for you about it.
Bring it in here. Let me evaluate it. But let's do that off camera.
All right, fair enough.
I'll take a look. I'll help you.
But I'm curious, like in that moment, you're like, okay, the Kindle is in most ways a gigantic success for what it is, right? Like it won the thing it was trying to win. How do we move this along? Strikes me as kind of a complicated question. And it also feels like, especially with something like the Scribe, you have given the Kindle a new job to do for the first time in a really long time.
Yeah, but a very focused job.
Okay.
A very focused job. And I think that's part of what Kindle is. Like Kindle's all about reading, and now it's about reading and writing, and it's that simple. These are both very innate behaviors in humans. And just stay that focused, distraction-free. Create while you write, create while you read. These are big things for me, for the team. I'm not sure how to think about it other than when you say it, I go, Kindle is a fantastic brand. I don't think it's even near its peak.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not even close. Not even close. Kindle's also a very humble brand. I mean, maybe that's why you say, oh, it had its day. No, it's so meaningful to be. That's why I call it a humble brand. It so means a lot to people.
For sure.
It's made a difference in their lives and still does. But here's a great example. Like if you had a Paperwhite from 4 years ago, I mean, you'd love that Paperwhite. You do.
Yeah.
People love their Kindles, like love.
Yeah. But I think this would, like, my wife loves her Kindle.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you want a new one? And her answer is basically, why?
Right.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, you can read that as huge success, but also
absolutely,
like,
it's rad.
Yeah.
Like, come on, if people are reading, let's take it. That's a win. And why means it's a robust and meaningful device, and it's doing the job it was meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
However, as an example, I'll challenge, like, do this for me. Go hand her the new Paperwhite.
I think if I hand her the color one, then we'll have a different conversation.
Try both.
Yeah.
Try both. I think color changes the emotion.
Buy 2 Kindles. I'm understanding my
keep buying Kindles. No.
But can I ask you actually a different variation on that question? Because I think the answer. So I think what you will say will come out in the answer to this question. I look at.
Yeah, I don't think David actually asked a question. I think he just made a bunch of statements there.
David was like,
challenged me. Is that right?
The question is, does Kindle have a lot of competition, and is there an ecosystem of things, other devices using like e-ink screens to drive that technology forward? Because there hasn't been a lot of action, like OLED displays. There's a lot of action in OLED displays. That technology is relentlessly moving forward, and you can build new kinds of products around whatever those displays can do. Kindle is like it's the main product in its category.
Yeah.
Do you think it has a bunch of competition that drives it forward? Do you think that the underlying ecosystem?
I think competition is always a great thing. You have to start there. I think it's always been, it always will be. Like, just makes everybody better. It's got to be a good thing. But I would also say, like, I don't think the tech is not done.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even close. I think there's another level that comes, and it's actually purposeful. I've had several of these arguments in the past, but LCDs have its purpose. OLED has its purpose. That line blurs quite a bit.
Yeah.
What that delta might be, what the purpose is between each. And so super close. But when you get down to ink displays and just the softer feel, softer on the eyes, what you're getting from it, and there is something about it that is romantic. They'll stay, that delta's critical, these are noisier. This is simple, but that simplicity doesn't mean there isn't innovation to be had. There's a ton of it left, and you can start getting into color. You can start getting into ink. You can start getting into speeds. All of it is important, but it doesn't need like, when you're making products, you don't need these massive leaps to change people's lives. Sometimes it's like the most subtle difference it's like just massive impact. So let's go back to, let's just go back to reading. We'll use your wife as the example, since you put it on the table. She loves her Paperwhite.
Yeah.
Is that right? Hand her the new Paperwhite. Color is a leap. there's a different level of emotion. So it's easy to understand, hey, this is the book. This is how the author intended you to see the cover, or you like reading comics, or take Trevor's new book or whatever. It's a color book. You just, read through it. It's very cool. But if you take it just to its most simple level and you hand her the new paperweight and just have her use it, I think you'll experience something. It's just back to this point of, it's a very subtle change. It's a massive change, really technically, but it's a subtle change to the user, which is basically speed of page turns.
It's the first thing I noticed when I picked up the one David has.
Dude, it's crazy. You hand somebody who had a 4-year-old paperweight the new one, first they're like, I don't need it. And then they turn a page and they're like, don't touch this. It is mine.
Yeah, I believe it.
The emotion is, it's not because there was color. It's not because it's a huge leap. It's not because you saw it. It's subtle, but you feel it. And when you feel it, this, like, it's so critical. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, this feels better. And while it's a massive technology shift in the product itself, under the covers, and in many ways, it's just totally different display stack. But you're now in this place of, wow, the user just felt it. And I don't think she gives it back.
Yeah.
Especially because all your books are there. Your content came with you. You didn't lose anything. You're not starting over. It's very seamless. And so now you're just back into the book you were in. Now it's just faster. And it's not like people are going to read faster. You just feel better. And so when you're reading and you feel great, you read, it's better.
Well, it goes back to what's so interesting about the Kindle as a product for me, is that, like, from the very beginning, the Kindle was always sort of not about itself. Like, the less you spent thinking about your Kindle, the more you...
It's like the truth in a product that disappears into the background.
No, hold on. I'm just going to disagree with David. That first Kindle really wanted you to think about it.
It did. That's fair.
That thing was like a remarkable.
It had a
piece of-
joystick. It was a whole
scroll wheel.
It was a lot going on. It
did a lot going on.
It
but
arrived to what you're saying. I'm just pointing out that
brilliant, guys.
the first one was a little out of control.
Stick to the facts.
Physical keyboard was sick.
Stick to the facts, man.
Keyboard was awesome.
What you're talking about.
All right, fair enough. Once
like split keyboards are one of my favorite things on the planet.
Once somebody other than Jeff was in charge of the Kindle design, it hit a point where, and we heard this from people for a decade, that, like, the goal is pen and paper, right? Like, that was the North Star of, like, it should feel like that, it should crumple like that, it should have all the properties of a thing that you don't think about or worry about as technology. And that's, I think, a good and admirable goal in a lot of ways, but also makes building the product really hard, because you're like, okay, every cool thing we build calls more attention to this device designed to not call attention to itself. And it's like, if the goal is to just get people reading, anything that you do that isn't open your book faster and turn the pages faster is both an upgrade and a downgrade in the experience.
Yeah.
And that just strikes me as a really complicated tension to sort through with a device like this.
Yeah. Here's what it comes down to. Since people love the product so much, you just have to listen to what they love. Like, they love it.
Which is different than listening to what they're asking for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Listen to what they love. And, with Paperwhite, just listen. And at the end of the day, this isn't about thinking about the Kindle. It's about thinking about what they're reading and disappearing into it. And then you start getting into the nuance. Like, so what do you love? Like, I just like the way it feels. Like how much it weighs. I like what I can lean in any posture. I like that I can lay by the beach. I like that I could spill my coffee on it. Like, they don't say those words, but you start listening. Like, I don't know, but one time I spilled my coffee and then I just wiped it and I kept reading and I'm like, so you like waterproof? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm laying at the beach. Like, that we test it with salt water. That you can drop this thing in the pool. Like, what you may not know it, but that's what you love, where you can do it. And now, but the real trick is the comfort that the product brings when you're reading, so it's not in your way and then it disappears. Take the new Paperwhite, like, the screen just got subtly bigger. It's up to 7 inches now, but the footprint of the device just barely grew, which means you still have that perfect center of gravity when you're holding it. You still don't think about the weight. It feels like a feather, when you're holding it and reading, it disappears lighter than a book. And you're like, you get to this point of, teams giving the user more real estate. It's subtle, back to one of those things. And now you see more.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple. The page was turning faster. Feels pretty good. But you haven't taken away anything they love. You just added to it. And I think critical. But it is a product that I think disappears into the background. Sans 17 years ago. I'm not gonna
Bring
comment.
back the transflective scroll bar on the side of the display. Let's go.
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but it's all about reading, and it works. It works really well now.
So there's two parts of the Kindle. David mentioned the Boox Palma, which I believe he caused the highest spike in their sales ever. People like that device. They like other e-ink devices because of what you're talking about, right? Younger people especially know that their phones are distracting. They're drawn to a cheaper e-ink device that offers a more focused experience or just a black and white experience to cut down on distraction and noise. There's a dumb phone movement out in the world. Like there's this idea that we should just not use our phones for everything. I see that. The Palma is a fine piece of hardware. It's like a commodity e-ink screen. The Kindle is like integrated, right? It's hardware, software. There's a service behind it. When I hear people complain the most about the Kindle, it's I'm locked into the Kindle ecosystem. I can't go to other bookstores. PDF on this device is messy. It's hard. And there's not like an app store for Kindles to let you extend the capabilities of the device. There is a little bit of a back and forth there, right? Where they love this device. It offers one very singular experience that might bring people into an ecosystem. They might love it. And then to make it do all the rest of the things you might want to do, like the scribe, you have to let it go be a computer.
You got to let it be a writing device.
Okay.
You got to let it be a writing device. I think it's a very slippery slope though. Like once you try and get kind of too cute with features or go too far, you start getting away from what we really want, which is the analogous, moving from the analog to the digital and just writing on paper. It's very dangerous, once you start introducing more. By the way, you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's why, like, we added a couple of Gen AI features to it, but two very simple. We have a list that we have such a long list. I think I was telling David yesterday, like the amount of features we could.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's right to confuse the scenario. If you can create some ands, great. But at the end of the day, what you need is fundamentally put your pen down and start writing, and as if it was paper. And we also introduced writing on a book, as if you were writing on a book. And so that translation is also challenging, but I think we're getting I think we're there. I think we're close.
But you're a unique person to talk about this with, because if I was like, who knows the most about running a full operating system with a pen on a piece of custom hardware?
I gotta find that person.
Yeah. And then it's like, and then you've got this other thing way at the other end of the spectrum where like you can write on a book.
Yeah.
Those experiences are kind of headed towards each other.
A little bit. I mean,
or at least with the Kindle Scribe, the more you add capability to it to do anything else, even if the capability is just as simple as you can access PDFs and write on them and get your notes out. Well, now you're like, here's the file system.
Which you can right now.
Right. But
with the new Scribe.
But not, it's still like within the Kindle world.
Absolutely.
Right? There's still a bunch of abstractions there.
And
that
the
make
feeling
it
you're not going to get the extra distractions. There's nothing better than when you go to attach a file to an email and you're like, oh, but let me check the web right now. Oh, let me see. I'm reading about the Verge. Oh, let's see. Like,
and that's my goal. Actually,
then you're down this.
How do I get the Verge on the Kindle Scribe?
But I think that's
but all the way to a Surface with a pen.
Yeah.
Right. You're on the same spectrum.
Somewhere between a device that exists only for reading books and nothing else, and
a computer,
and Windows.
Purpose-built matters. Let me just say that.
That's what you're saying.
It does, man. It does.
Do you buy that for Kindle specifically?
Specifically for Kindle.
Okay.
Like, be careful. Like, this is one of the beautiful things. Like, there's so many different things that can come together and make magic. Don't get me wrong. And how they come together makes a difference.
Oh, I agree. But I think,
but in specifically in this space, like, of course, you should be able to write on your iPad or a PC or a Surface or whatever it is. Of course you should. Of course. There's things to accomplish and things to do. There might be a job to be done. This is purpose driven.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need your paper to browse the web. You just don't. As a matter of fact, when you're writing, that's what you need to be doing sometimes, if not all the time. When I'm in a meeting, I take all my notes on my Scribe now. You can't imagine trying to do it on. You just don't. It's either that or a notebook.
Yeah,
but it's definitely not a full functioning computer because it just distracts me right out.
So that
impossible.
part where you take all your notes on the Scribe,
Yeah.
and then
I also do all my morning writing on the Scribe. It's why we brought this summarize feature together. Yeah.
so that's got to
take
go
all
out,
my
right? I mean,
notebooks.
this is the service aspect of it. The Scribe is running some Kindle operating system. It's running some set of Gen AI features that helps you summarize and takes the notes out. Those go up to a cloud service, and then
encrypted, secure, and sends it back.
And then
device,
they land
encrypts it on
as
the device.
text that you can use anywhere else.
Yeah.
They land in
So let's say in this case, in the summarize feature, the Gen AI feature, you can. I have I don't know, so many notebooks now, but they're named by people, they're named by products, they're named by meetings. You know, they're also. I have my morning notes, and generally it falls into one of those buckets, unless there's a creation bucket or an invention bucket. You know, I've got a few different ways I lay it out, but let's say there's 20 pages in a book, one of my notebooks, right? Those 20 pages of notes, that's a lot. And by the way, there's something emotional about writing, because there's recall. I remember I wrote this note right here on this piece of paper. I know how I wrote it. I know why I wrote it. But once you send this to the cloud, my 20 pages, it's going to summarize all 20, send it back into a very simple format. Yeah, think OCR or handwriting recognition.
Sure.
Take it, look at the 20 pages, summarize, bring it back in kind of a beautification form, like pick the font you want to put it in. We got a number of them. You can make it longer or shorter, whatever, but in very simplest form, it's 2 clicks, comes down. Here's a summary of all my notes. I've got a page of notes from 20 pages written, which is powerful.
I'm just getting to, let's say AI is the platform shift. And now instead of having one converged device on the phone, I have 3 devices. I've got a paper to write on. I've got, I don't know, one of the many, many microphone pins that David is constantly being forced to review, that he can talk to all day long. And maybe I do have a phone that is mostly a camera. At some point, I want all those things to talk to each other. And the idea that my AI pin does not know about the notes I took on my Amazon Scribe, does not know about an email I read on my laptop, actually creates like the desire for me to have more lock-in. Right. So like, fine, I'm just going to buy it all from one vendor. My phone the phone company is already selling me everything. How do you break that? Like, is it more interoperability? Is it extending the Kindle operating system to do more and more things?
No, I don't think it's that. I think interoperability is a great thing. Yeah. And you can find it. You can remove seams. Yeah. Between different OSs for sure. I don't really lose a lot of sleep over it. I also know that within the device family that Amazon builds, like that'll all continue because of AI, become more seamless. Back to point one, like the opportunities off the charts. But I don't think you want to lock it all in. I think you still need the interoperability as well. So I think they both matter. And I think it's different for every person. Like you're going to end up in a place where you love a certain set of devices. I don't think you're going to have 5 in your bag, but if there's a purpose-built device that you do need, you're going to take it with you, man. It makes a difference. You're going to need that connectivity, but don't be confused. All your notes on your Kindle today show up on your iPhone. Like on the Kindle app, it's right there. It's seamless. That integration's pretty awesome. And eventually you'll have editing those docs on your iPhone too, I'm sure. But so like, not to give away the future roadmap, but I don't think there's a limit to that. So when you say it, it doesn't resonate as much for me because we do believe in interoperability. We do want to see it. We see our products on all the other platforms and in a way that's useful for customers where it matters to them, not just to do it or to check a box, but that it matters.
I have one more question, then we actually do need to let you go because you have other things to do.
I do. It turns out
you were talking about the sort of dedicated device and the
isn't it at some point doesn't our team save me at some point?
We're in this moment of like the supposed disintermediation of the smartphone, right? There's like for years now, companies are like, what is the thing that comes after phones? And like digital cameras are making a comeback. Everybody's buying cool Pixes from 20 years ago again.
Are they?
Big trend.
You've been through, like you've been making products through the whole rise and sort of dominance of the smartphone. And you mentioned, the Kindle is a distraction-free device. It's been that thing for a long time. It's been successful for a long time. Do you buy the like big picture trend here that we shoved everything into a phone and the next phase is like pulling it all back out again?
No, I don't buy that at all.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know that was the big picture trend.
There are a lot of people who would like you to believe that it is. I'm not sure
they do.
Any of them are. Yeah, everybody who wants to make
are they really important people?
Anybody who's not Google and Apple would really like that to be the case because that's a really great way for them to get around App Store taxes.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you believe AI is a platform shift and you
AI is a
control.
platform shift. There's no
But
question.
then you can control a new kind of user interface, right? I mean,
Sure.
that's the heart of it.
Sure.
And then maybe you can get people to stop using their phone.
Yeah, but I don't think the phone's going away.
Yeah.
Like everything you said was right. I think the and then part was odd.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, look, a phone's a incredible utility, and the product you have in your pocket right now is probably a great product. And it has its purpose and form. I do think jobs are going to move off the phone. I don't think the phone goes away. I think we can make some magical products that have literally nothing to do with the phone.
Yeah.
And we're going to. I mean, that's why I'm here at Amazon. Like, go back to your first question. That is why I'm here at Amazon. Like, no question. Like, the opportunity to make magic with the through line of AI, as you said earlier, that's not fake.
Yeah.
That is a platform shift. But to get as silly to say, I remember 12 years ago when 13 so years ago when we had started Surface. I'll just give you an analogy, not that I want to go back there. There were so many people that told me the laptop is dead. I mean, what are you doing? It's over. The phone has replaced it. That was the meme 13 years ago. And that's not what was happening. Now, what was happening is certain jobs were moving to the phone. Just shopping's great on the phone. Social media is incredible on the phone. Taking photos off a phone, pretty damn good. Texting, communicating. But then the jobs on the laptop just got stronger, which is interesting. The jobs that had to be done on it. Walk into any meeting and everybody opens their laptop. It's just what they do. And in many places. You can do a lot on your phone, but it's not that the PC was dying, and it's analogous now. So take that analogy. Same thing now. I think jobs are going to move off the phone. I think there's probably better products, and I know there is, that are coming. Products that will bring more seamlessness for AI, make it more useful for people. I might be working on some of those products right now, as it turns out. Where we started. I believe that. I don't only believe it. I know I know it's right for customers, like for people. But to say it's going away, come on. That's silly. I think jobs do move, though. Does that analogy make sense? Like, the phone's not going away. That screen in your pocket, that's not the point. However, will certain jobs move and be better somewhere else? I think, yeah, for sure. Now, is there a world where everyone has 100 devices in their bag? No. But, some jobs move to your wrist and they're better there. Some jobs stay in your pocket and they're better there. Some jobs will be on your eyes. They're better there. And, once back to your seamless operations, like a lot of things will be ambient devices where voice is powerful. I know a few of those things. We got over 100 million people using them right now. Like, jobs are going to move there and they're going to be awesome. And by the way, unbelievably powerful jobs. And you're going to see it on devices that my team's building. Like, literally. I'm not supposed to talk about it. I can see my team's like, oh, don't talk about it. Don't what you're doing. Hold on, slow down on your, stop hinting at Echo and Alexa. Stop it. But let's be clear. There's reality between bringing together all these things. It's why I'm here working with this amazing team at Amazon, man. And I'm telling you, the product makers at Amazon are so good. And so there's this opportunity to pull a lot of things together, but then go back to your original point. I'm not sitting here as as part of this industry saying yes, and the phone is going away. No, come on. Silly. Couldn't get me to say that about technologies that matter every day in our lives. I might be wrong, maybe. Be happy to be proven wrong. It's fine by me. We got other options, but.
Do you think AI represents an opportunity to rethink the phone?
I think
This is the other thing we hear a lot about.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's true.
Right, as these jobs move, maybe these form factors
But just
change.
like anything, go back to my analogy from 13 years ago, it was a way to rethink the PC too. As jobs moved to the phone, there was a whole nother set of technology that hit the PC that these jobs have to get stronger, and you just rethink how those are done.
I think the last time you were here, you showed me the Surface Duo.
Is that right?
I think that was the last time we chatted in the studio. That
was a cool product,
ancient history.
by the way. Super cool.
Very cool product.
Do you think there's an opportunity to enter the phone for you? To make a new?
Now you're bridging into territory that I'm just,
I figure. You got to end with the big shot.
Yeah. Nice swing. Where's that button? Where's that button I'm not supposed to touch?
Panos, we're going to have you back and you're going to talk about leadership principles for like several hours. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think I mean, look, you got a lot of passion around it.
Love it. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, this is great.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
All right, we're back. The lightning round. This week, I sent Slacks about getting the lightning round sponsored.
Whoa. Did they accomplish anything? How rich are we now?
I will say that there were some very creative ideas that are still not the idea of just having us say the lightning round is sponsored.
Mm.
If you've got a company with the word lightning in it, boy, do they want to talk to you.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a lot. We're working on it. Again, I have no ability or sophistication or experience in selling ads. So my job is to just say it every week. It's
just speak advertising into existence.
Someone else with some money show up and someone here will figure it out.
I hope it's like the Tampa Bay Lightning, the NHL team that eventually sponsors the lightning round.
That's basically cool. Where we're at. And I was like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Like sponsored by George, I think would work at this point.
I like that.
Like George, if your name is George and you can write a check, call us up. It's some number. I don't know how it works. I don't know if you can call us up to buy an ad. Anyway, there's kind of a lot in this lightning round.
There is.
You take the first one.
All right. So this happened today, Thursday, as we're recording. Google announced some pretty big org chart shifts. And this is a thing we've kind of been tracking all year. Google has been pretty aggressively changing the way the company works, partly in order to just AIify everything, but I think partly because Google has changed a lot as a company and you have a lot of people who've been there a long time who maybe don't want to be there anymore or are just tapped out on what they've been doing for a long time. And so like it's just changing a lot. And the new one that happened on Thursday was that Prabhakar Raghavan, who has run search, ads, several other things, but mostly he is, I would say, the single most important person in terms of how Google makes money, and has been for a very long time, is now stepping down from that role and is becoming Google's, I think the title is Chief Technologist. What's the nice way to say this? That title doesn't mean anything. It's like, this is what, I mean, we went through this with Hiroshi Lockheimer, right? Who was like, I'm not leaving Google. I'm just going to go take on other roles. And that's all fine and good. They're going to continue to be interesting, important people inside of Google. But like the way that Google works is if you don't run a thing, you don't run a thing. You know what I mean? And so I think the idea of being chief technologist, it will be big and interesting, and he'll like show up at conferences every once in a while. But like it is super meaningful that he is leaving the search team,
which is the team, the most important team under the most pressure,
right?
Both from regulators and OpenAI, whatever.
Yeah, it is the thing. And to that point, actually, the person who is taking over that job is Nick Fox, who has been at Google for like forever. And a thing that I've heard internally over the years is that Nick is one of a very small number of people who Sundar Pichai believes are like his fixers. He is the person who is tapped to like make a thing work. He had to do it with messaging, which I mean,
David, I would just say your evidence does not support your claim.
But so yes, except RCS has worked. Google Messages is now everywhere. Like to the extent that Nick Fox had to solve an impossible problem, he actually did a pretty good job. He ran Assistant for a long time. He I think was one of the ones who launched Google Fi. Like hits and misses, but he is a guy who has been tapped to do some of Google's most important, most ambitious things at various times. And so I think it's telling that he is showing up as the one. He's not like a grizzled search executive, right? Like there are lots of people inside of search who've been working inside of search for a long time. He is a guy coming from another part of the company to presumably change the way that search operates, which I think is very interesting. Then the other big change is that the whole Gemini division is now going under DeepMind. DeepMind and Demis Hassabis, who runs DeepMind, is just ruthlessly consolidating AI power inside of Google. Demis just won a Nobel Prize, which is bananas. Like kudos to them for some of the protein stuff that they've been doing. It's really cool. But like piece by piece, every AI thing Google has been doing has come under Demis and DeepMind. And
except for Google Assistant, which is going to platforms and devices.
Which is, I think, a sign that Google Assistant is dying, right? Like Google Assistant is going to be how you turn Bluetooth on and off on your phone, and everything else is going to be Gemini. Like that's so clear where that's going to be.
So that's the Rick Osterloh group. That's the Pixel group and the Android group.
Oh, that's right. That is that group.
So that's just fascinating.
I actually think that makes perfect sense, right? That means that becomes a feature of Android, not an AI thing.
Or the Home Hub stuff.
Sure. It's a way to turn things on and off on your devices, which is fine. Like you actually don't need AI.
But isn't the future of Google Assistant the future of Gemini? Aren't they the same thing?
No, which is what's super annoying about using Android right now, because Gemini can't do the things on your phone. Oh yeah, but this is Google. Like, come on. I mean, give it a minute and it'll all get rolled under Demis at this point anyway. But
so what I take from this is actually no one knows how to organize these companies. Right? You're announcing a new chief technologist at your company. What is the most important technology in the future of Google? It's AI.
Yeah.
Is your new chief technologist going to... No, he's going to run right into your CEO of AI, the guy who just won a Nobel Prize.
Well, this is the problem with AI, right? Like if you believe AI is the future, AI is everything. It's your infrastructure, it's products, it's the like in between stuff that enables all this stuff. It's everything. AI is the whole stack, and all these companies are putting someone in charge of AI, which is like not the same as making them the CEO of the company, but it's also not that different.
Well, so I mean, I just compare and contrast to Microsoft, which has now largely the same structure. Google has moved itself to the same kind of structure as Microsoft. So Microsoft had Kevin Scott, who's a CTO. Famously, still the person at Microsoft, he told me this on Decoder, Kevin Scott owns the GPU budget at Microsoft. If you want to buy a GPU, you got to call Kevin. How do you make yourself the most powerful person in the company?
It's real.
So he was the CTO. He was the one who did a bunch of the OpenAI, like early work to do the OpenAI deal. He was like, figured it out. But then Microsoft, all the OpenAI drama happened, and Microsoft went out and sort of like just acquired the talent from Inflection. And now Mustafa Suleyman is the CEO of AI at Microsoft, and they have a CTO in Kevin Scott still. That is just a complicated org chart, and it looks exactly like this.
Yep, 100%.
And so you're just ending, these companies are they're trying to figure out how to structure themselves to make all this work. And the only difference to me is that Google's business is under such regulatory threat that a bunch of people are kind of choosing to bail instead of taking the next turn.
Yeah, I mean, and again, even if you think Google might come out of all this regulatory stuff unscathed, it's going to take so long. And if I'm Prabhakar Raghav, I'm like, do you want to sit and twiddle your thumbs for the better part of a decade until all this antitrust stuff gets sorted out? Or do you just want to like dip and go work on other problems? I kind of get it.
Yeah, they did all that consolidation in Android. I mean, Google is filing emergency motions with the court in the Epic case today to delay opening up Android to other stores. Do you want to do that, or do you just want to wander the earth?
Right. Yeah. All right, what's yours?
Weird. I actually have more Google stuff, but it's also Trump stuff, and I apologize. It's election season.
Oh, God.
Trump is talking a lot. And people are mad at us for covering this stuff, but there's a meaningful chance he could win. And I would just point out that we lived through the tech policy of a first Trump administration, which was bananas. I've been made to remember it recently, which I'm very upset about. Do you remember when I just counted days since Trump announced Google would build a website for coronavirus testing? Like every week? Like that's where we're at again. Yeah. Only this time, he hates the tech companies. Like J.D. Vance's answer to did Donald Trump lose the election is not yes or no. It's big tech interfered with the Hunter Biden laptop story, which is not an answer.
But they're pro TikTok now.
But they're pro. So none of this makes any sense. By the way, that's not an answer. Like you can be upset that people did or did not have information. That does not mean that their votes don't count.
Right.
Like I think a lot of people who voted for Hillary Clinton are pretty mad that the New York Times chose to make the word emails incredibly relevant to everyone, such that the Verge.com sells a t-shirt that just says emails on it. But that doesn't mean their votes didn't count.
Yep.
And so that whole Vance line of attack is nonsensical, but what it's pointed at is we're all mad at tech companies. So Trump is on stage at the Economic Club of Chicago, being interviewed by John Micklethwaite, who's the editor-in-chief of Bloomberg News. John Micklethwaite is a very proper British man. He used to be the editor-in-chief of The Economist. He is not a guff taking kind of dude.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's not a shenanigans kind of guy.
Yeah, I know a lot of EICs. This isn't the one that is having a party on the boat. I'm just
Fair.
putting out, but there are other ones that are. I'm not going to say who they are. But if you're on my list, you're on my list. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so John Micklethwait is interviewing Donald Trump. And he says the Department of Justice wants to break up Google. What do you think? And then Trump just says some stuff. And all of it adds up to, I want to do some speech regulations. I'm just going to read it to you. Trump says, yeah, look, Google's got a lot of power. They're very bad to me, very, very bad to me. I can speak from that standpoint. They only have bad stories. In other words, I have 20 good stories and 20 bad stories. Everyone's entitled to that. You only see the 20 bad stories. I called the head of Google the other day and I said, I'm getting a lot of good stories lately, but you don't find them in Google. I think it's a whole rigged deal. I think Google's rigged just like our government's rigged all over the place. Confusing.
Yeah.
So what he's talking about is if there are 20 stories about good stuff Trump has done and 20 stories about bad stuff Trump has done, and you search for Donald Trump's name in Google News, you only get the negative stories. Presumably that is what
I believe that is
to.
what he's talking about.
And
yes.
he called up presumably Sundar Pichai and complained about this. That is just core First Amendment activity.
Maybe he called Prabhakar and Prabhakar was like, I'm done with this. I'm out. Never mind.
I don't know, man. That is just straightforward First Amendment protected activity.
Yeah.
We're going to rank some stories. You're going to type in a search term and we're going to show you a list of them. And maybe you think Google should be more neutral. But if you want to do something about it, you in this country will run straight into the First Amendment. And these companies have won multiple cases asserting their First Amendment rights.
Yep.
So then he pivots this conversation about Google to China. And he says, I do something, but you have to give them a lot of credit. They've become such a power. You have to give them credit. How they became a power is really a discussion. Is that an antitrust argument? I don't know. And then he says, at the same time, it's a very dangerous thing because we want to have great companies. We don't want China to have these companies. Right now, China is afraid of Google. And then he says, China is a very powerful, very smart group of people.
I'm really glad you read that part. I was going to make you read that part if you didn't otherwise.
Which is a great way to describe a country.
Yeah.
What is a country? So I don't know, man. Like, is China afraid of Google, a company that doesn't operate in China? Is he talking about AI? I've like been trying to parse this for some time. So then Micklethwait says, well, if you're afraid of China, you wanted to ban TikTok, and now you're going to let TikTok operate in this country. And I don't know, Trump just pivoted this conversation. Because Micklethwait said, is TikTok a threat? And Trump goes, I think it is a threat. Frankly, I think everything is a threat. There's nothing that's not a threat.
We should put that on a t-shirt.
But sometimes you fight through the threats. Like Google, I'm not a fan of Google. They treat me badly. But are you going to destroy the company by doing that? If you do that, are you going to destroy the company? What you can do without breaking it up is make sure it's more fair. And then he ends with, and it's only bad because of fake news, because the news is really fake. That's the one thing we have to straighten out. We have to straighten out the press because we have a corrupt press. That all of that is speech regulations.
Yeah.
I want to make Google more fair. That's a content moderation law. And we're going to pass a law insisting that Google is fair. I don't know how you do that. And then we're going to straighten out the press. How? If you're mad at me for saying those, go ahead, write the law.
Right.
That straightens out the press. Involve the government in that process.
Just in the course of that, he drills all the way down to actually the problem is not fix Google. It's fix the people who are writing the stories about Google or about me that get posted on Google. Like it just, I don't know. If you think too hard about it, your brain sort of explodes. But these are things he said out loud.
And apparently he's calling CEO. So then the other story is today he said Tim Cook called him. So I'm just going to read you this quote. He's on one of the many, many bro podcasts that he's been going on lately. Like this man's on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Like who's on YouTube? It's Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, it's Donald Trump. Like he's just real. If you've got a YouTube bro podcast, call him up. He's ready to go. So he was on one today, the PBD podcast. Please don't get mad at me if you're like some huge YouTube fan of this podcast. I've never heard of it before. This is what I'm telling you. And I'm looking at the thumbnail here and I'm describing it as I'm describing it. He's on this podcast today. And he says, 3 hours ago, Cook, called me. He said the European Union has just fined us $15 billion. On top of that, they got fined by the European Union another $2 billion, which is true. In March, the EU fined Apple $2 billion after finding that Apple was restricting music apps in some way. And then they basically said Apple needs to pay $14.4 billion in unpaid taxes. Totally different things, totally different fines. And then Trump goes on to say, Cook said something that was interesting. He said they're using that to run their enterprise, meaning Europe is their enterprise. And then he said, that's a lot, Tim, but I have to get elected first, but I won't let them take advantage of our companies. That won't be happening.
What?
Okay, first of all, I love the idea that either Tim Cook or Donald Trump thinks that it costs $15 billion to run the EU. Like, very good. The most efficient government in world history. Mm-hmm. That would be great. Unclear how any U.S. politician can negotiate tax rates in other countries. That's just a thing. Like if Germany showed up on our doorstep and was like, we've got some ideas about your tax. Like we just wouldn't do it. I don't know. I'd be like, go away, Germany. American flag. Like, get out of here. So like, that's confusing. Yeah, maybe there's something the president can do in that case. The weirder thing is he just said it. He said, in the Google case, he said, I called the head of Google and I said some outlandish nonsense. Okay, we asked Google, they didn't say anything, but that's Trump's claim that he called, and maybe he's lying. In this one, he says Cook called him to complain about EU regulations, which is a very interesting thing for Tim Cook to have done. He put a time frame on it. He said 3 hours ago he called me. So we know approximately when. That's today as we're speaking. Mm-hmm. And so we asked Apple about this. Apple flatly doesn't respond. I will tell you, we talk to Apple a lot. We send a lot of notes to a lot of companies. Hey, did this happen? Hey, we need a statement. Hey, here's this thing. Hey, I have a lot of thoughts about your iPhone camera. We talk to these companies a lot. Dead silence, I don't know what it means. I'm not going to interpret it. I'm just saying I don't have to like go to a magistrate judge and file a form in triplicate to get a comment from a big tech company. Like this is the thing that we do all the way. So they just didn't respond. I don't know how to interpret this one.
I don't either. It's very odd. I mean, I think to some extent, the idea that a lot of tech CEOs are somewhere between actively rooting for a Trump presidency and hedging their bets in case he wins by, sucking up to him in various ways. That's real. It happened the last time he was president. It seems pretty clearly it's happening now. Tim Cook is not the jump on stage at a rally.
Tim Cook opened a fake factory for Donald Trump. Do you remember this?
This is what I mean. Like, this is not...
He was like, they're making iPhones and Macs in America again. And Tim Cook was like, we've come to this factory where we've been doing it for some time.
This is what I mean, right? So like, it wouldn't be completely out of character for Tim Cook to have done that essentially as like a make the man feel good, right? Like that is the overwhelming advice on how to get things out of Donald Trump is flatter him. And so to call him and be like, Donald, WTF, Europe, am I right? It's like, I can see why you would make that phone call if you're Tim Cook. I also can see a series of ways in which this story is not true and why Apple would decide that there is literally no upside to responding at all. So again, I'm in the same place of like, I don't know what to make of this. All the way on the spectrum from none of this happened to this happened exactly the way that he describes. I don't know how to interpret any of the possible outcomes. It's bananas.
I do love the idea that Tim Cook was like, they run Europe on my taxes. And it's like, well, first of all, they're mad at you because you haven't paid them.
Right. They actually don't. And that's the problem.
To be clear. Second of all, I don't think that's enough to run Europe. I've never run Europe before. I've imagined it as all children in the Midwest do. And it just, my budget was higher. When I was working out in high school in Wisconsin, I was like, I think it's going to take like $1 or $2 trillion to run Europe. Again, not an economist. I didn't have any formal training at the time. I just think it's more than 14.4. We'll see. We asked all these companies to respond to this. I will say that the two comments run right into each other. right? If you're Apple and you're mad at Europe, you're probably also mad at the United States Department of Justice for filing an antitrust case against you. And Donald Trump is here saying something has to be done about Google, which just lost its big antitrust case at the United States Department of Justice. The main result of which is that Google is going to stop paying Apple the money to be the default search provider on the iPhone. So it's just kind of all the same problem. And Trump is Trump, and I think he likes Tim Cook and is mad at Google search.
Yeah. Two easy things to be right now if you're Donald Trump. You know what I mean?
And really, that man is searching for the simplest one. Yeah. All right. Let's end with Anthropic and AI, because I think we should end with a vision of utopia. What's going on with this one?
Okay, so Dario Amodei, who is the CEO of Anthropic, wrote, I think it's either 13,000 or 14,000 words. It's so many words. My man wrote like a short book, basically making the case for AI. And I think it's particularly interesting that he's doing this because Sam Altman recently wrote his sort of opus about why AI is going to make everything wonderful. And Anthropic in a lot of ways has been kind of a tonal counter to OpenAI, that they've been much quieter about what they're building. They've been much less utopian. They've been much more concerned with security. They've talked a much more like realistic game about what they're doing. But as Kylie Robinson on our team pointed out, they also need to raise astounding amounts of money in order to do any of the stuff that they want to do. And it's much harder to raise money on like a careful case for why this stuff might be interesting than it is to just say out loud, I am building God, right? Like Kylie has just been running around the newsroom being like, this is why they're doing this. And I think she's right. And so what Dario did here basically was write a more reasoned, but still like wildly outrageously optimistic vision for what AI can be. And I think a lot of it is about the stuff that doesn't get talked about a lot when we talk about AI, which I actually really appreciate. People should read this. It's this and Stephen Wolfram's thing about how ChatGPT works from like 2 years ago are two very instructive primers on like what is going on in this space. And I think everybody should read both of them. They're both incredibly long, but they're very good. And I'll just read you the 5 things that he says are the categories he's most excited about. It's biology and physical health, neuroscience and mental health, economic development and poverty, peace and governance, work and meaning. First of all, that's everything. It's all the things. It's just
that's Europe. And if you have
Europe pays
14.4, you too can.
But he makes a bunch of interesting cases, and I think does a good job of explaining like here is what it's going to take to get to this. That we need AI that is sufficiently powerful and has lots of different interfaces. And you can poke holes in all of this because none of it exists. Most of it is going to be wildly difficult. And he just says, there's a line where he just says, it has all the interfaces available to a human working virtually, as if that's just like a feature you can ship tomorrow. So I take this less as a real roadmap towards anything and more just like an actually really thoughtful idea about what AI could be in the absolute best case. And in that way, it's a really good read. He talks a lot about what it could mean for medicine and what it could mean for how we interact with each other and with technology. And we've talked a lot about like the relationships people are building with AI characters. He mentions that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in here, and you get to the end and you're like, hell yeah, AI, let's go. And then it's like, oh, there's other things, and also none of this exists or probably will anytime soon. And that's where we land. And the thing I've seen most people say about this is like, even if he's right about all of this, his timelines are off by orders of magnitude. And so I think if you go into it thinking with that perspective, I actually think this is a super fun read.
Yeah. It's funny because right next to it is the New York Times warning Perplexity to stop using its content. Right. And it's like, kind of all of this is built on just like taking everything.
Yeah.
Like all of the electricity and all of the content, all of the money. And it's like, in return, you have to promise digital God.
I mean, and to
like
be
what
clear,
is worth all of that taking? It's
what
like,
this does promise is digital God. He doesn't say it in as many words. And he's very careful to not say AGI, which is what has become the synonym for digital God. I think he just calls it powerful AI, which doesn't sound less alarming. It's just different alarming, I guess. But yeah, it is. This is the size of the promise you have to make if you're one of these companies in order to do everything you need to do to get there. And like, this is as neat and reasoned a summation of that stance as I've seen yet. Like he might be wrong about everything, but it's like, if you want to get inside the rational brain of the AI industry right now, this is about as close as I've seen.
And they have to take everything.
Right. And it takes 14,000 words to explain.
It's just like, and one lawsuit from Sarah Silverman could bring this all to a grinding.
100%. Yeah, you put this next to, was it Mark Andreessen who was like, you can't force us to pay for this because then we won't be able to do it.
Yep.
Like, take those two statements next to each other and it becomes very hard to know where any of this is going to go.
Yeah. And that, by the way, was Mark Andreessen said that in a filing to the United States Copyright Office.
Perfect.
Very good. All right, we are over. That was a good one. I'm sorry that it's like very close to election. We have to talk about it. We're going to actually have a bunch of election coverage coming soon, just like policy coverage. So get ready. It's coming. It's going to be weird because it's going to be like right next to laptop reviews. But that's what
the Verge, baby.
That's
the Verge.
Correct. That's the thing that we make. It's all
We're going
one
straight
thing.
from 2004 week to election coverage.
Oh,
like,
we should just mention, but David was the editor on 2004 week. Congratulations, David. It's been incredible this week.
It turned out awesome. I deserve the least credit of everyone who worked on it. But it turned out awesome, and everyone should go read every single one of the stories. And even if you don't read them, just click on them because the design of everyone is different and they're all so sick. And you should just look at them. Don't even read them. Just look at them. And that's all I ask.
Well, you should read them because the reporters did a great job writing them. But it is true that Graham Mackery, our engineer, Chris Naraki, our creative director, and Kat Virginia, our designer, had the time of their lives making this go, and it's very good. So go click on all the links. We'll put them there. That's happening. And then thanks to Panos for coming on the show. We're going to have him back when it's Alexa time.
Yeah.
I think we can say that. All right, that's it. That's Vergecast. Rock and roll.
And that's it for the Vergecast this week. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call at 866-VERGE11. The Vergecast is a production of The Verge and Vox Media Podcast Network. Our show is produced by Liam James, Will Poor, and Eric Gomez. And that's it. We'll see you next week.